So I get in the car. My dad's like, did you get it? I'm like, yeah. Dad's like, oh, okay, cool. How much you making? I don't know. I don't know.
I know somewhere along you had some other very, very difficult moments, and one that was very pivotal.
Yeah. There were plenty of moments when I just wanted to be alone. Like, just let me sort through this. Let me figure this out, because no one else can help you. No one else is coming to save you. It's up to you.
Gives me goosebumps listening to it, man.
I'm driving my car and I'm screaming, I'm never going to work for anybody else again. I'm not going to let anybody tell me how much I'm worth, what time I have to be at an office. None of it. I'm going to be my own boss moving forward.
How do you know if you are grieving an unfilled life?
So, are you I hate to ask this, I don't know, this is coming to me, but are you a
Very important question to start.
Yes.
Are you still doing P90X?
So interestingly enough, I was the very first success story for the program back in 2004. No, I'm not. However, I am very active as I'm getting older. I just don't want to be in a place where I'm not able to function. And, there's a lot of good years hopefully in front of me, and I want to be able to enjoy those. So, yeah.
Any favorite, like, you're doing a lot of stuff outside, especially in the summertime here in Maine that we're finally here?
Yeah, I mean, even the wintertime, I like to do a lot of hiking. There's a lot of trails in and around coastal Maine, mid-coast Maine, and I love the hiking aspect of just some of these trails. But I spend a lot of time in the gym, too, when it's just not, realistic to be outside. Do some camping, things like that. But, yeah, I just, the activity, just getting outside, getting back to your nature is so important. And it just, especially if you've been working for such a long time and you're just putting in hours, getting outside and walking a trail can just completely change your nervous system from that fight, flight, and freeze down to that calm and connect. Yeah. So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get some of your favorite hikes after the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's some good trails.
Super into it, and always looking for more to do.
Of course. Yeah.
Was the P90X, was that where you would say you first developed grit?
It was, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Years ago, I did write a book, and in that book, I kind of talk about my early experiences of loss and, how I managed to find my way through those things. But up to that point in my life, when P90X was the program I was going through, was 90 days, I just made myself commit to that I was going to do every single day. And at first you're like, yeah, whenever you start something new, you're always so excited about it. And then a week goes into it and you start to realize how difficult it really is and what you're actually working towards. And you have an option at that point. Do I bail out, or do I go find something else that might be easier? Or do I just say, no, let me just do this one more day. One more day. So that's exactly what I did for that program, because it got progressively harder over the course of, but for good reason. It's meant to transform you. So yeah, it did. I did.
Yeah. It's crazy how, that lesson just applies to so many different things in life. I mean, we're going to get into it a lot, but like the entrepreneurship journey, myself with the digital nomad journey, what this podcast is about, right? The Dirt Path is, you are excited at the beginning to like venture on this new path.
Right.
And then you do get to a point where it's like, motivation wears off. You're a bit stuck, like, what the hell am I doing?
Right. Yeah.
So I love that. Maybe it was an initial, like, important moment. It sounds like for you in kind of.
Yeah, it was. It was just, it's similar to the Karate Kid, where Mr. Miyagi's like, hey, paint the fence or wax on, wax off. And you're like, what am I doing this for? It doesn't make any sense. But it's that repetition, even the boring stuff. There's an entrepreneur, his name is Alex Hormozi. I don't know if you've heard of Alex. But he talks about that's where your biggest grit is born, is in doing those boring things, because that's where most people, check out and be like, no, this isn't what I wanted to do. This isn't. The exciting stuff comes along, but it kind of comes in waves, right? And whether you're building something or going through some growth phase, but when you're not doing much and you're just doing the things that are keeping the business going and your life going, it kind of reminds you of those days when nothing was moving in your life and you feel like, oh, wait, something's wrong. But it's not. That's actually where you're kind of building a good foundation there. You need that. So, yeah.
Yeah. The moments that you grow the most, like almost like type 2 fun. Like we have this a lot in traveling where, type 1 fun is like you go travel somewhere, you go into the spa, you're eating some awesome food, you enjoy it in the moment.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like type 2 fun countries. Like my friend always talks about his time in India, where it's just absolute chaos. I mean, you're going and like the smells are everywhere.
Yeah.
You're okay, maybe good food, and then you get sick the next day, but you get these awesome travel stories and you look back and you learned a lot and very different culturally. So I call that type 2 fun. So it's almost like that with growth as well.
Yes.
And just personal development. Like it's such a slog to get through, but you look back on it and you're like, those are such of my, important time, the formidable time.
But you learn something along the way, even if you're not consciously aware of that. You learn something about yourself in that process to be like, oh, I can do this. Like whatever's hard, it's meant to be hard. Anything you want in this world is uphill, right? And if it's easy, it's probably not going to mean much to you later on in life. So, yeah.
I want to get to your entrepreneurship journey.
Sure.
But before that, just to give people a background, it was IT that you really started in, right?
Yes. Yeah. I started in IT back in 1992. I'm dating myself here. I started off in IT. I initially actually started off as a computer developer, like a program developer. And it just wasn't synchronous. I just could not get into it. I just thought it was the most boring thing ever. And I moved from Maine to Memphis, Tennessee, where my buddy was living. And for the next 3 months, I tried to find a development job. Couldn't. And there were a couple opportunities that actually came to fruition, but I sabotaged them. I couldn't do it. I just for something inside of me, like I just can't do this again. And so my father came down to visit on a work trip. He kind of stopped in, and when we got into the car, he's like, "Hey man, have you found a job yet?" Because I was living with my friend and I was overstaying my welcome. I said, "No, I've been looking though." And he knew I was half-assing it. He just knew I wasn't trying really hard. And so we got back to the house, and before he even took his bag to the guest room, he's like, "Go get the newspaper. You're finding a job today because you have 2 weeks to figure this out, or you're moving back. You've overstayed your welcome." And I'm 22 at the time, right? And I'm like, okay, fine. So I get the newspaper, and he opens up. He goes, "Here, computer sales. Call them." I'm like, "I don't want to do computer sales. 2 weeks, man. You got 2 weeks." So I fine, I'll call him. And I call him, and the guy's like, "Can you come down?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure." So I don't know how I made a 45-minute commute in 25 minutes, but I managed to get to the office, and it was this little computer store in the back of a Service Merchandise, if you guys remember those stores. I go in and I get interviewed. The guy walks me through this warehouse, and there's just stacks of computer towers, 200, 300, computer towers in boxes. There's components that are stacked up on these shelves. And he walks me to this back conference room, which is kind of doubling as a storage room as well. And, for the next half an hour, it wasn't an interview, it was a conversation. And I'm just like, I'm digging this. This is actually pretty cool. He's like, "Okay, give me a few minutes. I need to go talk to the big boss and I'll come right back." And I'm like, I got this. Like, this is cool. I can actually get in the car with my dad and be like, "I got a job, man." So he comes back, he goes, "I don't think you're right for this sales job." I'm like, oh. So it's like, I go to get up. He's like, "But what do you think about building computers?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. Tell me what's what." Well, first of all, you take the case out of the box and you have to unscrew all the screws, and then you take this motherboard and you put it down into the case and you screw each four corners, and then you put in the video card and the hard drive and all this other stuff, and then you load Windows and DOS. Do you think you can do that?" I'm like, heck yeah, I can do that. He goes, great, you start tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, right, I got a job. So I get in the car, my dad's like, did you get it? I'm like, yeah, but it's not the sales job. He's like, what are you gonna be doing? I said, I'll be building computers. Dad's like, oh, okay, cool. How much you making? I don't know. I don't know. He's like, well, how many hours is it? I don't know. I got the job. Mm-hmm. So I got back to my buddy's house and I called him back. I'm like, I'm just curious, like, how much does this pay? What are the hours? And it turned out to be $15,000 a year. Back in 1992, that was decent, I guess, for an entry level position like that. And it was 60 hours a week though. It was Monday through Saturday, 8 to 6.
Wow.
But I didn't care. I'm 22 again. I'm like, okay, I'll figure out my free time when I do. But I dove into it and I picked up a lot. I had a really good mentor who basically showed me how to build a computer, what to troubleshoot, how to, break, fix and all that. And that was the start of my 25-year career in IT. And without ever getting a degree in that, without ever getting certified in anything, I just moved my way up into, eventual team leadership positions. And ultimately, got to the point where I was a director of IT and had a team of 7. And just that experience over the 25 years, I learned how to ride that wave without necessarily having to go to school for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, Dad said you had a job.
Yeah.
You did exactly that.
Yeah.
Nothing outside of the parameters. You
right.
did exactly
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the story of, well, not necessarily how you got the job, but of so many people of you get the job. And I don't know how early or how long it took for you to get to the point where like, there's cool parts about this, but it's not for me. Mm. But you kept, it sounds like you were very good at it. I mean, 25 years, you kept moving up.
Yeah.
Why not stay in that? Why not move up all the way to the top, kind of keep going in that?
I think there's a point in a corporate career where the curtain starts to get pulled back on what's really going on in the background. And I'm saying that there's, it's not nefarious. It's just the way that corporate America operates. You're there to do a job, and you're there to, be a cog in the wheel, if you will. And if you leave or if you go somewhere else, they'll just replace you with somebody else who can be molded and shaped into whatever they want them to be for the time that they're there as well. And so I did have aspirations to, continue to grow and get into even higher leadership positions, but I saw the sacrifice that was involved with that from my own life. And I couldn't align to it. And so even on a director level, I remember sitting in that conversation with my boss who promoted me from a manager to a director. And he's like, this means a lot more responsibility. It means a lot more time. It means a lot more. I'm like, whoa. And at the time, fortunately, it did come with a very handsome increase. But that was the only upside that I was looking at. And then when you start to actually get into the role and you start to see what's really required of you, you start to realize that you're missing out on moments you can't get back. And it's for a reason though, Grayson, right? It's to support the people, your family, or even yourself. And yes, there's status there. Yes, there's title there. There's all that. But the time that you spend in those positions, it has a cost. Yeah.
At some point, the monetary raises are awesome,
right?
But you want a lifestyle raise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
you want to live life. That's why you're here, and we don't work to live. Sorry, we work to live, but we don't want to live to work, right? Yeah.
And there's that cap, I think, with being in corporate of the lifestyle raise, right? I mean, part of in my role was trying to help, increase that gap with the flexibility, but at the end, you still had to put in your 40 plus hours. We can't really get around that.
Right.
And so you decide to take the leap into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
For you, was that a slow build, let me do it on the side, or was it just like, screw this, I'm done, I'm going?
I mean, I think we all, when we have that that curious mindset about what to do, I think we daydream a lot about, oh, this I can just see, I see other people doing this, right? And what we don't see though is the journey to get there. So yes, naturally, I think when I thought about starting something, it was triggered by just that weight of the grind inside of the corporate role that I was in at the time. And then when an opportunity came to me, immediately, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this guy, he left corporate after a year of doing this. And this is very, very much what they call uninformed optimism, right? All I had to do was just to get people interested in a fitness program, a workout program, and the supplements. And they're just gonna come to you in droves, man. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I can do that. So you believe that you can do it. And then when you actually start to get into it and you realize it's not necessarily that easy at all.
I don't know if I've heard that phrase, the uninformed optimist.
Yeah.
I get that, and I think there's a lot of people that have that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost on the other side of the spectrum,
mm-hmm.
where it's like, I'm a former engineer, and so a lot of my colleagues, I think, and engineers would resonate with the fact of like,
mm-hmm.
sometimes you're too smart for your own good.
Right.
And sometimes I need a little bit of that like ignorance or uninformed optimist and shutting the rest of my brain off to take the leap.
Right.
But then those people, they need to think about things a little bit more.
Right.
So it's interesting knowing who you are, that self-awareness.
Yeah.
Which one am I? And they both have different pros and cons.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah. And the uninformed optimism typically leads to the next step. And they call this the transition curve, where most people get stuck on this in a loop. So they hear about an opportunity, they feel and they see this, and maybe it's even promoted in an uninformed, all you have to do is these 3 things and you'll be a gazillionaire by the end of the year, right? But then you get into what's known as informed pessimism, where you start to take that journey and then you realize everything, as it's getting unpacked, you're like, oh, all the details start to come to light. And now you're like, oh, okay, I don't know if I can do this. And then you start to kind of gravitate back towards what you were doing because it's familiar. You already know how to do it. And when you hit that that informed pessimism, it's like a slippery slope, and you start to slip down to the point where most people hit this exit point where they're just like, it's too much. I can't make it happen. It's not happening fast enough. And they bail out, but then a few months later, they just recycle and they're back into that, ooh, this looks exciting. Shiny object syndrome, right? It's like the next thing. And that's the other part too, is this whole transition curve is that that typically when you get down to that bailout point, that decision point, whether I continue or I don't, just like P90X, right? That you have that uninformed optimism and this is going to be, oh, I could do 90. Who can't do 90 days, right? Then you have the informed pessimism, like, oh no, this is really hard. It's not just the working out, it's the eating part that's even harder, right? Then you get to the people, and it's the same paradigm, I think, for anybody that takes on something new in their life. So you just get to that point where most people will bail out. I think that the percentage is somewhere between 80 and 90% of the people that start something bail out. And then they hit that shiny object syndrome, which could pull them out even faster, but then they cycle back and they start again, and they just stay in that loop. They never go through that phase of kind of like, being forged in the fire, of just sticking with it, doing it taking one more step. But when you come out of that, you take that turn at the very bottom of that curve and you come out, now you're getting into what's known as evidence-based success. You start to see incremental kind of increase. Okay, that's working now. Where it didn't work before, now it's working. And I would just always ask somebody that if you hit that place like this, give it one more day, just go one more step, give it one more day. And you'll see, and if you're walking a path, right? It's the same thing when you're walking a path, that you might come to this place where like, okay, I don't know if I can navigate this terrain. But if you don't have to go fast, right? You just figure out what's going to be the next step in front of you. You can't take them all at the same time. So, yeah.
And did you follow the transition curve, would you say? And if so, what was your point of, your low point that you eventually, were forged in the fire and got up?
I appreciate that question because it wasn't the first time. The first time that I entered that opportunity, I did hit that. I hit every one of those stages, and I did kind of bail out. And then even when I started on the path I'm on right now, I got to a certain point where I'm like, it's not working. Nothing's working. Maybe I should just, figure this out and do something else. And it was interesting because at that time, that's kind of when an opportunity, I left corporate in 2017, and I didn't really have a structure in place. I just said, okay, I know how to speak. I'm getting opportunities to speak on stages, and I'll just figure it out. Don't do that. And then after I left, I really struggled to try to figure out, how to kind of get my business going on its own. And it was just, barely hanging on. And then an opportunity came by one of my coaches to actually work for him in a chief of staff role. And so again, you just think like, okay, here's where I'm at. This thing isn't working. I bailed out again. And after a couple of years of working for him, I realized that, I still had my business was still there, but it was kind of dying on the vine. And I tried to revive it. And that was more evidence that it wasn't working. And then there was this opportunity that also came up that actually became aligned with my life as it was at that time. And then once that happened, everything started to fall into place. So I felt like, okay, if I'm going to stay in this, I've already bailed out 3 different times. If I'm going to stay in this, I have to keep working through those moments when it's not working and keep going. So, yeah.
And what was that final opportunity, and what did you pivot in?
So it was interesting that it actually tapped into my IT skills. I was, as a chief of staff, I was working, wonderful company, small company, great team. My boss, my former coach and boss at the time was just, really, really good guy, smart guy, had a lot going on. And, but the business started to struggle. And so I kind of saw the writing. I know what happens, and again, that's experience, just being in corporate for a long time. You just know when things are starting to shift underneath you. Instead of waiting for something to be decided for me, I figured I was going to make that decision myself. So I found an opportunity in what is known as funnel building, marketing funnel building. And I said, I'm going to do this because it was aligned with my skills. It was aligned to where my life was at. I didn't have to just take a leap and just do that by itself. I can do this alongside of my life and my job. And there were people that were looking for these services. So there was already a demand for it, a market demand for it. So all those check boxes, and I'm like, okay. And yeah, same thing, same type of path. Like to get certified, it wasn't like, hey, you just build one funnel and you're certified. No, you had to build 18 different funnels, various size, various complexity. And that was a process as well. But I think at that point I was like, I'm just going to stick this through and figure it out. And I did. And that started to yield some new connections with funnel building clients. I was then brought in to be a funnel builder advisor for a very high level mastermind with the company that actually certified us. And then that led to working with folks who were either starting a business or building a business and trying to figure out how to get it to the next level. So yeah, that alignment was key.
And I know somewhere along, I don't know where exactly in the timeline, you had some other very, very difficult moments, I know, and one that was very pivotal for you. I mean, I recently watched your TED Talk. It was really moving for me.
Thank you.
I'll put everything in the show notes, but are you comfortable talking a little bit about Zoe?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the catalyst for doing what I'm doing right now actually started, interestingly enough, during that first opportunity that I was getting involved with. My 15-year-old daughter, or 13-year-old daughter, Zoe, was struggling. Her sister was struggling. The family was just going through one of those moments, right, that all families tend to go through. For about 18 months, she was in and out of adolescent units, and doing my best to maintain my role at work, and to try to, get out of the 9-to-5 as fast as possible with that opportunity. But the more that Zoe and her sister needed needed me to be present for them, I slowly kind of pulled away from both opportunities, my job and the other opportunity. And so ultimately that led to me getting laid off from my job after going on a PIP. And I remember my boss at the time telling me, maybe it'd be a good idea if you get a babysitter for your daughter. And I'm like, I'm done. So fortunately, after I left there, I found the next company, and 3 months later, Zoe took her life in January of 2014. And everything stopped at that point. I can tell you that company that I was working for I'd only been there for not even 3 months, and they were absolutely phenomenal. They take as much time as you need, which is rare. They paid me during that time. They didn't have to. There were so many things that they did to kind of help me to get back up on my feet. And I think it was 3 or 4 months later, I finally went back full time. And, but everything had shifted at that point. It was recognizing the moments that I had missed with Zoe growing up, because I was no longer married to her mom, but missing out on those moments because of work. It was knowing that I didn't want to do that moving forward with my life either. That, there's still people that are counting on me to be, dad and brother and son and all those things, and friend. And so, but it was her friends, Zoe's friends, that came to me and asked me, what do we do with this? What do we do? I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm just, but we're going to figure it out, And so that moment of losing Zoe became a catalyst for me. And actually everybody in the family, I can say that we're, as a family unit, even though, everybody's older and mom and I, her mom and I aren't together, we're in a really good place now, all of us. And, but, going through that moment with her friends, I just felt like I wanted to be able to help them navigate one of the biggest setbacks that they're probably going to have to deal with in life. And that just started to open the doors of understanding and awareness of the parallels between any setback you have in life to, how to survive it first, get back up, and then live beyond whatever loss that was. And that's kind of how things transitioned into me coaching, speaking, and training on the topic of grief recovery for a few years, and then doing what I'm doing right now.
It's a very powerful story. I'll put the TED Talk in the description.
Thank you.
I'd really recommend people watching it. It's really, really good. But and I know you talked about you had the time, and then Zoe's friends started to kind of come to you. But I mean, I can imagine you're just figuring out yourself.
Oh, yeah.
How do you hold space for other people, and then get back into the job to, try to make a living again, and then also just getting up every day yourself through all of that?
It's not easy. I remember just taking smaller steps of figuring out what helped me throughout the day. And I learned very quickly that when you help others, you help yourself to heal. Whether it was figuring something out and I could have a conversation with one of Zoe's friends who was dealing with the same exact thing that I was dealing with at the time, and just relaying that through story and narrative about here's what happened, here's what I did. Maybe it'll help you too. Or what do you think could help you here, type of thing. But there were plenty of moments when I just wanted to be alone. Like, just let me sort through this. Let me figure this out, because no one else can help you. No one else is coming to save you. It's up to you. But it is absolutely possible. I think with support and with the belief that there are better days ahead. Again, it doesn't matter what the setback is. You could lose a relationship. You could lose a loved one. You could lose yourself, right? You can lose yourself in a job. And there is always a path back. But there's a specific sequence that I think you need to approach it in. And that is, I think you do need to survive it first. Survival isn't meant to be permanent. It's meant to be temporary. But a lot of people hit that survival mode and they stay there. They stay there indefinitely. But finding a way to recognize when you're having some better moments is a good transition into getting back up. Being able to, even if you're just going through the motions throughout the day, healthy distractions, keeping yourself busy with work and things like that. I found that going back to work was actually really helpful for me, because it allowed me to kind of use a different part of my brain that wasn't focused on grief, right? It let me use, because I think the grief part, I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if that's more the intellectual side of your brain or the creative side of your brain. Maybe it's a combination of both, but when I was at work, it was just that intellectual side. And it gave me a respite from, the struggle. Of course, the moment I got home, I'd be boo-hooing it. But eventually, and this is something that I relayed to one of her friends. His name is Jerry. Jerry was one of Zoe's best friends. And Jerry came over to my house not even a month after Zoe died. And he's like, "What am I going to do? Zoe's gone." I said, "Jerry, you're going to get up in the morning. You're going to put your feet on the ground. You're going to get dressed. You're going to go to school. You're going to come home from school. You're going to have dinner, and you're going to practice your guitar for 4 hours like you've been doing since you were 4 years old. And then you're going to do the same thing every day until it feels normal." And that advice, when I was sharing that with him, I'm like, geez, I can do that myself. Right? So I just had to keep, if that's all you can do, then that's okay. And for some people, I would never force a situation, but at some point when you do feel that energy to do something, go and do it. If the situation was reversed and I had died and Zoe was still here, I'd want her to figure out how to keep going. I wouldn't want her to be sad for me. I'd want her to live her life. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing. The other day we connected online.
Yes.
And I started looking into a little bit about your story, and I immediately was like, I need to have this guy on the podcast. It's such a powerful story for so many people, but to be honest, for me right now, I really need to hear it.
Yeah.
Just to, be vulnerable and honest with you if you've been with me.
Yeah.
The last year and a half has been pretty trying for me. Started out like I tore my meniscus while in South Africa, had surgery. It was a successful surgery, but had like a rare complication to where I have nerve damage on a muscle. That's going to come back, multiple doctors I talked to, multiple PTs said they'd never seen this before, which you always want to have a doctor tell you.
Right.
So while I recovered in general, that can be 6 months to 2 years. I'm still waiting on it healing. So I can't do any more extreme sports, being super active, which I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
A couple months, after that surgery, one of my best friends were diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. The day he started chemo, my other best friend in Mexico was hit by a car.
Oh.
Cracked his skull, had severe brain damage, had emergency brain surgery. I mean, that's a crazy long story. We could go into a whole podcast just on that. But, he survived, did treatments and rehab, and he's been called a miracle by many doctors. But his life will never be the same.
Right.
He's not the same person he will be, and he won't be.
Right.
Excuse me. He's still going to be dealing with that for the rest of his life. A couple months after that, I get laid off from my dream job, right? This job that I worked really hard to build and I was really excited about. And through that, I was grateful for that.
Yes.
Well, let me back up. So the first friend that had the lymphoma, he has recovered. So I'm really grateful for that.
Good.
And the second friend, like I said, he's been called a miracle. So I'm grateful by that.
Yeah.
I am grateful for being laid off because that's led me to, starting this podcast, starting my entrepreneurship journey. It's always something I've wanted to do. And I did need that little kick out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I was telling you before, I wanted to buy a house and do these other things. So I've been pushed off on that. And, getting into the entrepreneurship journey, I'm not an overnight success. I'm very much just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I haven't had the monetary success. Very recently, while this is ongoing, I don't want to get into a lot of the details. My mom, who I have a very complicated relationship, let's just say, was recently diagnosed with like a different cancer as well. So currently dealing through navigating all of that, on top of everything. And so finding your story and just listening to your TED Talk and having you here now, really powerful for me because, to be honest, just taking that step each day has been really difficult.
Nice. Really. How are you holding up overall?
Not super great.
Okay.
To be fully honest. Right. I've been in a little bit of a rut.
Sure.
I would say probably this last month-ish. It timed up with the time we got back from traveling to Maine is when I, heard about things with my mom.
Right.
Was recently there and still dealing with that.
Yeah.
Amidst, again, a very trying time with my business where I'm in that time of like, okay, do I change things? Do I just need to keep going?
Right.
So it's been really tough.
Yeah.
And just trying to put one foot in front of the other is the focus, and trying to get away from the habits that I know don't help me and do more of the habits that I know do help me. But it has been really tough.
What are some of those habits?
Going to the gym in the morning. Yeah. Getting up at a certain, early.
Yeah.
Going to the gym.
Yep.
Meditating in the morning. Really starting the day off right. Yeah. It lends me to finishing or having a full day.
Yes.
On the backside of that, just being disciplined with my bedtime, little things like this, right? Like Sleep the World Cup is going on right now. I want to watch these games. They're late. Yeah. But not always the best, I think, with what I'm going through. But
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, this is kind of a Jerry moment here, It's keep doing those things that are going to just keep your feet moving in that direction, because you're not going back. You can't go back. We can't change what happened, but we can change what happens next. And so, but that's our choice. And I know it's not easy, right? There's those moments when it feels like, I just don't want to take that next step. I just want to stay here. Can I just stop for a second? But that's caustic to us by just staying, because that's when everything comes swimming right in. And so finding those things, whether it's I'm definitely going to give you a list of those hiking trails, right? But doing those things that just kind of get you out of your head and get you back into nature, getting back to who we are, right? Life is going to keep lifing. There were other losses that came after Zoe. There were other setbacks that you're like, okay, this can't get any, this is crazy. One of her friends came to me a couple weeks afterwards and literally told me that she was on the precipice of taking her own life. And because Zoe did, she realized that she didn't want that because she saw what the impact was. She wasn't looking to do it for attention. She was really struggling. And so was Zoe. I don't fault Zoe for that. I understand that life can just come down, and you're 15 years old. There's only so much you can take. So, but we all have our own thing that's going on in our life. And I know we talked a little bit about this beforehand. Stephen Pressfield wrote the book, The War of Art. And he talks about resistance, and resistance loves stuff like this, loves it. Even the loss of a loved one. It challenges us to keep going, because that's why most people stay in survival mode, because it's hard to take that next step forward. And it's scary. There's fear. Fear is a big thing. Procrastination, shadow work, shadow activities, things like that. Addiction is a big part of resistance. It's just not facing up to what's going. I'm sorry. I do not want to simplify that because I don't know. That's a complex situation. But just life in general, with all those things that we have to deal with, our relationships are huge aspect of us, right? Having with family and friends and loved ones, and it's not. There's nothing certain about any of it, and there's things that we can't control. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but we're not responsible for what happened to us. But at this point in our lives, we are responsible for what we do with it. And so, and I think that the way we do with that doesn't have to be one set of rules, because everybody, what it doesn't matter what works for everybody else, what works for you, right? Well, so what are those things that you can do for yourself that not only keep you moving forward, but gently give you the ability to do something new that brings you that next level of like, okay, I need to be here. So I think we were talking about this before we started recording too, that, I'd be working months and months and months on my stuff that I'm working on right now. And I love it. I'm a sponge. I'll spend, 60 hours working on my stuff gladly, not 60 hours working for somebody else on their stuff. But I forgot that I needed to get out. And so I left. I finished up a project. I didn't want to stop, but I stopped, and I got my shoes, my hiking shoes, and I went over to Wolf's Neck Park over there in Freeport. Mm-hmm. And I just walked this long trail. It's called the Harraseeket Trail. It goes out to the coast, and I'm just listening to, the wind going through the spruce trees and the birds and the chipmunks tearing through the leaves and just the water smashing up against the waves as I was getting close. I'm like, okay. I just felt myself hey, it feels really good, because that's who we really are. We're meant to experience this world and this lifetime, not in a cubicle, right? But outside, and that's just who we are. Yeah. So
that was actually our first hike in Maine.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. It's a great, if you're ever up in Maine, you got to check that place out. It's really good. And, yeah. So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you opening up.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I found your profile, I was like, I want to have this, him on, because as I have more questions, you're perfect for the podcast, but also it was just like, for where I am right now, I think it was just divine timing.
Do you feel like you're moving in a good direction for yourself at this point? Or do you feel like you're still kind of stuck?
Last couple of days, I would say, I feel like I've gotten in the right direction.
Okay.
Things are still actively going on.
Sure.
Right. So.
Oh, what's changed?
Coming back here.
Okay.
Being around friends.
Yep.
A little bit. Like last night we were around some friends. And
nice.
Getting to the co-work.
Yeah.
Going to the gym.
Yeah.
Taking these little steps.
Yeah. I think that's it, man. That's the key. It's nothing complex. It's just like, what are those things that bring you joy? The people in your life, who do you want to be around? What do you want to do? And just go do those things, It doesn't have to be I mean, look, for some people, it could be a trip around the world that's what I need. Okay, great. That's recovery. We all need to recover. But during the week, there's 2 forms of recovery that my boss would share with me. And I hope that's helpful for your audience. But there's micro recoveries, and then there's macro recoveries. Micro recoveries are those things that we can do every single day that just kind of help us reset and keep going when the shit is hitting the fan. I don't know if that's okay to say that. And so that's, for example, I had a dog that I put down a few years ago, and the vet, she called me up. She's like, I don't know how to, because I'm either putting dogs down or animals down, or I'm welcoming a new animal into a family. And that's all day, every day. It's just up, down, up, down. So I invited her to do some breath work, in between each appointment, whether it was going to be a difficult appointment or even a positive appointment, just do 5 minutes of lower body breathing, because that resets your vagus nerve. You're telling your body, because if we go around, we're hunched up, we don't breathe right, and we're bracing, and we're keeping ourselves in that sympathetic nervous state, and that's not a good place to be for anything, especially for a length of time. And so, but those micro resets allow you to kind of, get yourself from fight, flight, or freeze down to calm and connect. And then you're able to think more clearly from that place. And if you do those throughout the week, that could even be like, hey, today I'm going to the gym, or I'm going on a hike, or I'm going to hang out with some friends tonight. It's a micro reset. You feel disconnected from the crap that you're going through. The macro recoveries are a little different. They are scheduled, they are sacred, and they are protected. Because what typically happens, say you're going to take a trip, the next trip you take, part of the reason why you're probably taking these trips is because at some point, maybe into day 2 or day 3, when you get to that destination that you're at, you start to feel your toes uncurl. You start to feel like you're in it, and now you feel like you're connected with yourself, because all the other crap is just, it's not there. It's not there. You're present in that moment, and that is exactly where you want to be. But the reason that they're sacred and they're protected is because these need to happen at least once every 90 days, at a minimum. And I've recently found too that if I'm working, I'll do a 3-night camping trip or a 2-night camping trip somewhere. It doesn't matter. I'm just out of the element. My laptop's not with me. My phone's with me, but that's more for entertainment than anything else. But I'm not connected to clients. I'm not connected to anything related to work. I'm just connected to myself and the nature. And now I'm recharged. Now I'm ready to kind of keep going for the longer haul. So yeah, micro recoveries and macro recoveries, very important.
I'm big into camping.
Yeah.
Loving coming back to Maine. We did it last year. Paige had never done backpacking.
Okay.
So I'm very much going to be on that very soon. We haven't done it yet because I've been a little bit around.
Yeah.
But I love that point.
Yeah.
And,
where in Maine have you guys gone?
Our favorite last year, we did a long drive up the coast. And we went all the way up to the Bold Coast. Okay. Have you been there?
No.
It's on Cutler's Cove or something.
Okay. I've heard of Cutler's Cove, yeah.
It's almost on the border with Canada.
Oh, it's near Lubeck, up near there?
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
And just this epic backpacking trail. You go in from the forest, and then you're on the coastline up and down for almost the whole time.
What does it feel like when you're doing that?
It's meditative.
Yeah.
It's where I can get out of my head.
Yeah. Yep.
But also where I can have some nice creative thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It kind of gives 100%. Me whatever I need in that moment.
Good. Yeah.
And doing a lot of hikes around here.
Yeah. Maine's good for that.
Yeah.
Maine's really good for that. Yeah.
Before we move on, because I have a lot of other questions for you about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Can you give us something like a memory from Zoe, maybe you circle back to that you really love?
Yeah. Right before she passed, she got very philosophical. It was almost uber mature of her, being 15 years old, and just kind of, it's like she had taken all of the experience that she had been navigating, And I know this is a very common statement, but the thing that she would say is just be. Just be. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to remind myself of that when I've been sideways. You know, things have just gone to the left and I don't know. No, okay. Just chill, man. Like, just take it easy. I think one of the bigger things that happened was a couple years after she passed away, I had gotten myself into this rut of just blaming myself for what happened. And I got literally this routine where I'd take the commuter rail into Boston from the town I lived in. The second I got off the commuter rail, I'd get in my car and I would drive 2 miles back to my house. And it got to the point where every single day when I got in my car about a mile down the road, I'd start crying and start saying, I'm so sorry, Zoe. I'm so sorry, Zoe. I should have been a better dad for you. Like over and over and over again. I was reinforcing that belief. And I don't know what happened on this one particular day, but I didn't even get off the train and I was already crying. But I got in my car and I sat there for 10 minutes and the windows were fogging up. I was crying so hard. And I started driving away and I started the same thing. Now I'm screaming in the car. I'm so sorry, Zoe. And it was as if she was sitting in the seat next to me. She's like, cut the crap, Dad. I'm fine. I heard her voice in my head and I stopped and I'm like, I'm trying to, catch myself from doing that. And I just kind of froze. I drove the rest of the way home and I pulled into my driveway and I just sat there. And she was right. She wasn't in any pain anymore. I feel like she's in a better place. And it just reminded me that it was my decision on what I chose to do with it at that point. I could continue beating myself up. I couldn't change anything. As much as I want to fix you, so much you want to fix that, you can't. But that kind of just made me aware that, you can't change what happened, but you can change what happens next and what you do. And that's always available to you. Always available to you. And sometimes you might just need somebody else to kind of help you kind of figure that out. Zoe did that, and whatever way she did it, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just my brain going, cut the crap, But it was like she was sitting there and I heard her voice clearly. It was a very powerful moment. And I haven't gone back there since, mentally or emotionally. So it's and so when she says just be, I mean, I think it's a very common statement out there, but it's very powerful. It's very simple, but it's very powerful. Yeah.
Gives me goosebumps listening to it, man.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you sharing.
Yes.
And I think it's sometimes from these toughest moments that the greatest things, are born. And coming back to one of the first things I asked you was grit. The grit guy was born. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of how you help people navigate their situations? Yeah,
I appreciate that. So after Zoe passed and after I started doing some storytelling to understand, because I really wanted to tell Zoe's story, not from a dumping perspective, but from a helpful perspective of how you navigate some of the biggest setbacks in life. It led to some of my coaches saying, you really should be coaching others in this space. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, this is about resilience. And I didn't want it to be something that was generic, I wanted it to be something that was impactful. And so I formed at that point what's known as resilience leaders. And that was kind of, I don't want to be so cold to say it's just an umbrella brand, but it was what I wanted to do coaching underneath that. So underneath that resilience leaders, I formed Your Journey Guided. And that was the coaching and speaking and training on grief recovery. I'm not a counselor, I'm a coach, and there's a difference there. So, I going through that experience of navigating grief, it teaches you a lot, and I wanted to be able to share anecdotal aspects of that journey, helpful things, but really kind of help people really to get to that place within themselves when they're like, okay, I really want to feel better now. I don't want to be carrying this heaviness any longer. So, again, it's not counseling, it's just coaching. So I would just I would start working with people one-on-one. And as the years started to go by, as I'm building this, for lack of a better term, business, I start to realize that I'm navigating a lot of grief myself, not just with Zoe, but for an unlived life that I was trying to figure out while Zoe was here, while I was in the corporate realm, right, as an employee. And when I recognized that aspect of my journey, I was working for my former coach as his chief of staff. And towards the end of 2022, like I said, I saw the writing on the wall early on, and I started that other journey of funnel building. And in 2022, he let me go. And it was a business decision. It wasn't anything. We're very close to this day. So again, it's just we're kind of back to being not coach and client. We're just friends. And so, but it was a very difficult business decision for him to make. And but I was angry at the time. Like the second that it happened, I'm like, are you kidding me? I moved from Maine to Florida. Like I like Florida, but I don't like Florida. I prefer Maine because that's where I'm just used to. So, I'm driving my car and I'm screaming, just trying to get rid of some of the energy. And I grabbed my iPhone and I just spoke into the notes, because I'm like, I'm never going to work for anybody else again. I'm not going to let anybody tell me how much I'm worth, what time I have to be at an office, none of it. I'm going to be my own boss moving forward. And that's when I reminded myself, because I was scared too. I think I was scared and angry because now I have to go find another job. But I didn't even think about it, because it was just the default. This is the fourth time I'm getting laid off. And every other time, like, oh my gosh, I got to go get, like the first thought you have is I got to go get another job. In this case, I very quickly remembered that I had been building this thing on the side. And that gave me such a huge sense of relief that I could actually step into that now full time. I could give that all of my energy without being apologetic about it, without hiding it, and just help as many people to not just, and it really wasn't even so much about building funnels at that point. It was, how can I help people do what I just did over the last 10 years in building a business? Let me just tell you what these pitfalls are, and let me help you avoid them. And so that was the day the Grit Guy was born. And for the last 4 years, that's what I've been helping. I've been helping employees become entrepreneurs, build something alongside of their job, so that without risking their current job, their income, their family responsibilities, and yeah. So
I love that quote: "Grieving in Unlived Life."
Yes,
I think it is so true. I mean, the metaphor for the podcast, right, is the dirt. There's the dirt path and the highway.
Yes.
And the people on the highway, that's where most people are. There's lots of traffic there. You have signs telling you where to go. Right. There's lights. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people should be on the highway. They enjoy it. There's no problem with it. But there's other people that just kind of drone along. Yeah. And it's not meant for them. Mm-hmm. And then there's the dirt path, right? Which is digital nomading, entrepreneurship, being an artist, right? Whatever. Yeah. But there are no signs. Right. You don't know where you're going. There's no lights. You don't even know if you're on the freaking path. You're going the right direction. But when you're on the highway, I think sometimes, how do you know if you're grieving an an unfilled life? Like, what are those signs that you can look at that maybe you are meant for the dirt path?
I think life tries to tell you without it being direct and clear. I often ask people to kind of take an internal assessment. And when your gut is your second brain, right? It's telling you something and we don't listen to it. But that's 250,000 years of DNA that's protecting us. It's telling you that something isn't right. And so when somebody is just droning along, right, and they know that they're meant for more than what they're doing, they start to feel those sensations, and it might actually be physically making them sick. Acid reflux, just physical ailments, headaches, migraines, the stress, all of it. And we just feel like in this modern world, we have to just slog through it. Like, I'll take a couple of Tylenol, I'll be good. But we're just basically masking what's going on, really. We're not really looking at it. So taking that internal assessment and saying, okay, this is telling me something. And then usually what happens is that life will thump you with something big that is the big reminder. Like, dude, like, you really need to think about this. For me, it was losing Zoe. For others, it could be that job loss, right? Or it could be they're seeing things that they're not operating like they used to. It's not normal. Something's not normal here. I think that's the moment when people they look at that. I think they look at that dirt path, and it can be scary because they just don't know where to start. They don't really know how to. And so they just kind of stay where they are. And then life will keep on repeating the same thing over and over again until you finally figure it out. Right? And then when you figure it out, oh, okay, well, that wasn't really that bad. But the stuff you had to deal with beforehand to get to that point of figuring out is bad. Yeah, it's hard.
I like to say, for me, like with digital nomading, for example, like I told you, when I went abroad in high school to Europe, from then it was like, I want to live abroad.
Yeah.
And that just never went away. It was this voice in the back of my head that just kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder until I just couldn't ignore it.
Right. Yeah.
And then I did have that moment. Right?
Yeah.
COVID happened. It changed the landscape.
Yes.
It made things possible. I had another moment where it was just like questioned everything in life and made it my ultimate goal.
Did you ever push it down though? Did you ever get to the point where before COVID, there were signs, but you're like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I'm just going to keep going what I'm doing.
It's a good question. So right before COVID, like in January 2020, I had just gotten back from a trip and I asked my boss, what do you think about this? I love traveling, been working here for a few years. Like, what do you think about me working remotely and, traveling abroad for a little bit? And he's like, yeah, I think that can work.
Yep.
Maybe in 4 or 5 more years when you have some more experience. I'm like, man, I can't wait that long.
Right.
And so it suppressed me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I had a very serendipitous story. Like I was just telling everybody about this goal, and so after that, I was actually in the locker room of a climbing gym.
Okay.
Talking with the guy how I love travel.
Yeah.
I'd like to live abroad, but I think I need to, change industries because that's, from that conversation, I was like, it's not possible in engineering. And it really wasn't, at that time. And the guy goes, where do you work or what do you do? And I said, electrical engineer. And the guy behind me then says, okay, where do you work? So I told him, well, turns out, my company was a very small company, but it came from a little bit of a bigger company. And that was his company. He was the president of our direct rival that people came from.
No kidding.
But nothing happened because before COVID and stuff like this. And during COVID, I tried to change industries, but it wasn't a great time to do that. And I did get pretty down. Yeah, I did. And it was really a time that, one one of my cousins was also like diagnosed with, we knew she had stage 3 cancer. She was upgraded to stage 4. And again, just a really pivotal time where I just like went home that day and just wrote myself a letter, like hit me in a year. I would say, if you weren't traveling by now, like you need to go and make it work. Like you're putting your 2 weeks notice and you're just going to go and figure it out. Because your cousin was just diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
Right.
You just turned 25. It's the middle of the pandemic. Everything with George Floyd was going on. Like there's nothing guaranteed in this world.
Right.
You got to go. If you still want to do this, like this, you've had enough time to try to find a job.
Yep.
And that was the most freeing moment I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because I was just looking at, I'm going to go. So I set my lease to expire. I'm obviously looking for a job still.
Sure.
But I'm looking at what are ways I can just travel, I can make some money or do whatever, saving money to do that. And then eventually, serendipitously, that guy from the climbing gym reaches out.
Wow.
I asked if I started traveling. I said no, but you know what I want to do?
Yep.
I found out they just offered remote work. So I was like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
We hopped on an interview. I did a lot of research, and that's how I eventually got the opportunity.
Yeah.
So very, very serendipitous, but it really is having to take a chance, when those opportunities come.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in like manifesting, right? But that opportunity didn't come unless I was actively, I was the annoying person telling everybody I wouldn't live abroad.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I mean, if you're telling yourself every day, I just got to get up and go to work, that's what's going to happen, right? If you get up every day and you say, you know what? No, I want something more for my life. I want to do something different. The opportunities will find you. You're not open to an opportunity if you're not talking about it, type of thing. I know that's a very simple way of saying something, probably more, something I could articulate better. But I had a similar moment too. I left corporate America in 2017. And for the next 18 months, I tried to figure things out. And I was able to kind of keep myself going. And up to the point where I'm like, I'm going to do a workshop in downtown Boston. I'm going to I want 10 people in the room. And at the end of that, I was going to invite them to work with me as a coach for the next year. And I filled the room. It was really difficult to fill the room, but I invested about $7,000 into putting this event on. Again, I didn't know about putting on events. I kind of did it myself. Definitely better ways of doing it. But I wanted the experience to feel premium. I wanted people to feel like, hey, the space is rented, downtown Boston, beautiful views, catered lunches, And then at the end, when I made the offer for coaching, no one took it. And that next day when I got home, I had $75 to my name. $75 to my name. I had a mortgage coming up. I had my bills coming up. I'm almost in a panic. And no kidding, about an hour later, the phone rings, and it's a former colleague that I had known when I was working in Boston, who said, hey, I know you're not working in IT right now, but we need some help. Would you consider contracting? That day.
Wow.
And yes. So that was my first kind of like, I contracted for the next 6 months. And even though it wasn't focused on my business, it was exactly what I needed in that moment to keep going on this path. So it allowed me to reassess what I was doing, where I was living, all that. And so I sold my home and I moved back up here. And then same thing in the next 18, these 18-month periods just seemed to be what it was. But over the next 18 months, I tried that was my lease. That was my lease term. And that was early 2019. On August of 2019, that's when my coach said, hey, my business was still kind of like, somewhat moving, but I didn't have the financial pressure at that point. He's like, I want you to come in and run my company for him. I'm like, wait, this isn't IT. This is something different. And since his business was very similar to mine, I'm like, this is great. He could actually show me some of the aspects of business that I'm not aware of. So it was definitely beneficial to be in that role. And I learned a ton. He took me under his wing. He taught me about business development. He taught me about marketing. He taught me about, just coaching in general. He like all these aspects of that type of business. So very grateful for that. And then, but that was also a serendipitous moment because I was getting to the end of that financial money that I had. I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do for right now. So, and then that led me to getting into, again, this whole, there's no mistakes. The whole path is meant to be what it's meant to be to get you to where you are today. So, are you I hate to ask this, I don't know, this is coming to me, but are you a Star Trek fan at all? If not, no worries. But
I'm more Star Wars.
Okay. Oh, definitely Star Wars. In the 80s, there was the Star Trek Next Generation. There was an episode called Tapestry. And the reason I'm sharing this is because in the plot of that show was that the captain at the time was injured, and there was another entity called Q. Q was this omniscient being that could, just do whatever. And so he'd snap his fingers, and because the captain's like, I should have had a different life. And so Q snaps his fingers, and the captain goes back to when he was young, and he made different decisions about, certain situations. And that led him on a different path to this life of mediocrity, not being a captain, just being like this low-level ensign on the same starship. And the realization that the captain has is that, that life happens the way it happens, good, bad, or otherwise, but it all is the tapestry that gets you to where you are today. And it's continuously getting woven, and there are no mistakes. And so, again, you can edit that out of this. But I think it's a relevant piece, though. And it's like that's the only show from that series that sticks with me because it was such an impactful reminder that you can wish for a different life. But, and it doesn't matter where you are in life, you can always, in your case, like step onto that dirt path. It's unexplored right now, but just imagine what gets uncovered and discovered when you start taking those steps. It's very powerful. I wish more people would do it.
Yeah, it's like your journey is your journey, right? And
right.
It's going to be messy. I mean, we're humans.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to be perfect in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I really want to ask you is, so there's a lot of ways to jump onto the dirt path, right? And, let's say the entrepreneurship journey. You can just quit and go all in. And I think for some people that really works. That's what they need.
Sure.
Other people, you can take a different approach, right? You can do the side hustle method like you kind of talk about.
Yeah.
What is the difference of, what are the types of people that should lean into maybe the side hustle method instead of just the quit and go for it?
It's a great question. I think that the folks that should kind of look at just doing something alongside of life as it is are those that don't have the ability to just up and quit and leave. I mean, I'd like to be a trust fund baby. I'd like to win the lottery. I'm not saying those are the only two reasons why people can quit. Some people actually tap into their savings. They're like, I'm just done. And they utilize their savings. But I feel like that's a gamble in a lot of ways because there's no certainty with it. When you're building something alongside of your life as it is, it doesn't impact your life. It shouldn't impact your life. It should complement it. We have fragmented time. A lot of people say, I want to do something. I don't know where to start. I don't have the time. My life is already busy. And so there's a lot you can accomplish without setting success deadlines for yourself and with finding that fragmented time and pulling it together and saying, okay, 3 to 5 hours a week, I can actually build something that is real. I can validate it. And then once I validate it, I can truly kind of put more time and energy and effort into it without disrupting my current life, including my job, including my family responsibilities. And I think that the majority of the messages that I receive are that people are just absolutely worn out and they want out as fast as possible, but that's not reality. And there's a lot of opportunities out there that are sold to a fake version of life that doesn't exist. Hey, just create a PDF, sell 30 of them and you'll be, have 10 grand by the end of the month. Like, okay, that might be true for that person, but they had to endure that path of understanding their own journey to get to that place where they're successful like that. And I don't subscribe to that approach personally. And I'm not saying that my approach is the only approach that works, but this should complement life, not add to it.
Yeah. I really resonated with it. To be honest, it's a lot how I approach like the digital nomad journey, because for me, when I was in that time of like the 2020 and I wanted to the digital nomading,
right,
I would see all these videos of just quit and go figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
okay.
like, okay, awesome. But I have no freaking clue what I want to do. Like I want freedom and I would love to be an entrepreneur one day.
Yeah.
I have no clue what I want to do for a business. And to change my whole lifestyle and career at the same time felt really scary.
Yeah.
So, you know, the characteristic that I have and people I work with, and it sounds like maybe the people you work with, one of them is like a calculated risk taker.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of risk into just quitting it all and trying to start a business. There's a lot of risk in
staying where you are.
Staying where you are.
Yeah.
And you're balancing that with like what I say to people is, okay, if you want to do that, you can do it one step at a time.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Like I started digital nomading with my company, met more entrepreneurs because that's more nomads,
right,
and gave me more confidence to when I eventually took the leap.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar, like for you, if somebody wants freedom,
yes,
entrepreneurship is a great way to get there. But you can start it with a side hustle to give you that, you know, sense of ease a little bit before you make it. So I think it's a really, really great approach.
Thank you. There's something I'd like to kind of add to that, because I think it's really important, is that, you know, when you're working in corporate for years, your life has to adjust to the way the company and that corporate system operates. And I'm talking about your calendar, your family life, all of it. You have to almost sacrifice your life in order to keep that job at the time kind of in place. And that is an employee structure that you come up with, you come into it when you first start in corporate, and you kind of move your way up every time you step up into different roles, and you learn to adapt. Where humans are very adaptable, but the benefit of being adaptable is that in order to do your own thing, you have to develop your own structure. And that I wouldn't leave until the day you say, I'm out. I would always tell people, and I tell this to my coaching clients now, that in the process of building your next chapter in your business, it's also about building this entrepreneurial structure that allows you to operate on your terms. And it's different. And when I left corporate America the first time, I didn't have that structure. I just figured I'm just going to approach my life as an employee in this new thing. I didn't say it consciously, but that's how I approached it. And it became a second job. It became another job. And now I'm my own boss who I hate. You know, I'm like, this guy's a jerk. He's working me and nothing's happening. Like, I'm not making any money. Like, what's going on? So you don't want it to become a second job or another job. If you're doing something on your own, an entrepreneur, time is your biggest asset. You can ask any entrepreneur out there, if you just look at surveys, time is usually the thing that they wish they had more of. And so when you are running your own thing, when you're designing your own thing, when you're launching your own thing, and you're figuring some of these aspects out, the only way you're able to do that is by creating a structure that supports that. Because if you try to approach it from an employee mindset, it's not going to work. You're just going to be struggling even more. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. For sure. Eric, I have way more questions I would love to ask you. I don't think I want to do an 8-hour podcast and subject to you that to you though. So maybe we'll have you on another time. But
yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
I said, it was amazing timing for me.
Excellent.
And so valuable for the audience.
Yeah, thank you.
Everything.
I hope it's helpful.
Where's the best place that people can connect with you? I know you have some free guides on some of the stuff that you've talked about and stuff.
So the best place to connect with me is on Instagram. I'm at The Grit Guy on Instagram. And if anybody wants to check anything out about, what I do, where I come from, and my stories as well, they can go to thegreatguy.com.
Awesome. So, we'll put that in the show notes.
Excellent.
And again, I really appreciate the vulnerability,
yes.
Especially, and you have such a powerful story.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and your audience.
Of course. And you choosing to show up and share that with other people and get up, I really appreciate that. And so I have one final question for you, which is, why the dirt path? In this episode, we've kind of laid out your dirt path, right? You started on the highway with the job and moving up, and you decided that wasn't for you.
Right.
And so you delved into the entrepreneurship journey. But like any dirt path, it wasn't straight.
Right.
You had to figure a lot of things out, right? Sounds like you went down one path and that wasn't for me, and then over here, and a lot of struggles, right? I mean, the highway is difficult in ways, but the dirt path, it is very difficult. It's very slow.
Right.
And I'm sure you faced, maybe even harder things that you ever would have faced otherwise. So with all of that, why the dirt path for you?
I want to enjoy the moments that I can't get back in life. And I don't think the highway allows for that. And imagine walking that dirt path and discovering purpose, meaning, fulfillment for why you're actually here. And there's no greater gift of being a human at that point, I think, than having that moment. I don't think we can discover that when we're working a 9-to-5. Yeah.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Saw the exit sign flash by, a whisper in the breeze said, take a chance, don't wonder why, just follow where it leads. Oh, the dirt path, it ain't easy, no map to guide the way. Slow and hard, sometimes uneasy, you stumble through the clay. No signs to tell you where you're bound, no traffic to obey. But every step on broken ground builds something great someday.